Well, the recent arrest of a Columbia University activist has sparked protests and many questions about the legality of his detention. Mahmoud Khalil now faces deportation after he was taken into ICE custody over the weekend, despite being in the United States legally. A hearing today could determine if he is released or not. Criminal Defense Attorney Eric Faddis joins us now to discuss this wide-ranging topic that obviously has made national headlines. Eric, good to see you here today. So,
good to be with you.
President Trump says Khalil's arrest is just the beginning as he wants to crack down on what we're seeing here. I guess let me ask you this. He's got a green card. He's married to a U.S. citizen. They go into his apartment and basically apprehend him. The legality of that alone, what are we talking about?
Yeah, there are a number of sensitive legal issues that arise with this case. In the immigration side of things, the Immigration and Nationality Act does authorize for an arrest of a person if the government reasonably believes that they are engaging in terrorist activity or likely to engage in terrorist activity. It appears that was the ground on which he was arrested, but there are challenges to that arrest.
All right. So in today's hearing, what is Khalil's legal team? What is their argument, and how do they challenge this detainment based on what you said right there? If they felt that he was subject to being involved in some type of terrorist, however you want to define it, I guess, what do his lawyers have to basically describe?
Right now, what they are arguing under what's called the habeas corpus petition is that the arrest and detainment was unlawful based on essentially the First Amendment, that people have free speech, they are allowed to engage in activism, and that should not result in some sort of detention and possible deportation. That'll be the argument today, and a judge will decide whether that release is appropriate.
So I guess does it come down to that this was, he was engaged in activism, not terrorism?
Well, it's dependent on the eye of the beholder in part. It's not really a black and white line defining the two. I would note that this provision is usually used when there is financial or operational support provided to terrorist groups, not simply organizing a protest.
Well, I guess that was the question I had right there. If you're just going out there organizing protests while you're living on campus, a little bit different than, let's say, if you're doing something that's a little bit more terrorism related. He was taken to Louisiana, which I think probably surprised quite a few people, that he was literally scooped up in New York City, taken to Louisiana. It's a state, obviously, that has much different laws than here in New York. So, again, why taken to Louisiana? For what specific reason, if you know or don't know? And will he most likely have to stay there, or will he be brought back?
Chris, my understanding in terms of the sequence of events is that Khalil filed his habeas corpus petition to seek release, and then immediately the federal authorities transferred him to Louisiana. For what reason? That's a bit unclear. Louisiana doesn't have really a nexus to any of the alleged activities that occurred here. His attorneys are seeking to have him transported back to New York to hear this case. The federal government is arguing that the Southern District of New York federal court does not have jurisdiction to render that order, that instead an immigration court would have to render such an order.
All right, so given the increasing tension between universities' roles as spaces for free expression and the federal government's now immigration enforcement policies, where does free speech factor, and what precedent is being set here when you've got an administration that has been so pro-free speech when it relates to them, but when it relates to something like this, they're now anti-free speech?
Yeah, Chris, this is a rather unusual move. Typically, college demonstrators are not targeted for deportation due to alleged terrorist activity. This is really a new thing. And so, the courts are going to look at whether there was an allegation of terrorist activity and whether simply, words saying, hey, rise up, or being critical of Israel amount to some kind of material support for a terrorist organization. I think that notion is questionable.
So that's the argument today, and we will see how it plays out in court. As always, Eric, thank you. Good to talk with you again.
Good to be with you, Chris.
All right, and for more updates on today's hearing, you can head to cbsnewyork.com.